Welcome. Come on, you better school us in life.
I'm like, what?
I love it. I can see you driving now to it.
I'll be in the car, like, no matter where I'm going, I'm just like, let me get hype real quick. Like,
I love it. What's James? I am so glad you are here. This is truly an honor. I'm excited for this conversation.
thank you, Elise, so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. It's so near and dear to my heart, this conversation. And so when you asked me like to take part, I was like absolutely energetically feeling aligned with it. Like, let's have this conversation. Let's do this.
Yes, let's do it. Look, let me tell the people a little bit about you first. Because I said, like I told you, you out here, James, you out here doing the thing. You quit playing. Quit playing. Let me tell you guys a little bit about James. Before I do, let me say hey, because I don't know if this is your first time. I don't know if you've been here every week. I don't know. So let me just say hi to everyone who's tuning in. I am Elise, and you are officially in Growing in Gentleness, a weekly conversation for the gentle and not so gentle parents. So if you're here, let us know. If you're catching a replay, make sure you hashtag replay so we can know you caught us later. All right. But I'm excited today. We have special guest James D. Williams. My bad. I should have put the D in your name at the bottom. But James D. Williams. Let me tell you guys a little bit about who he is. So James Williams is living proof that you can break the intergenerational cycles of trauma, defy all odds, and live life by doing what lights you up. I love that. By 18, James experienced enough adversities to develop depression, PTSD, and chronic medical conditions. A two-time first-generational college student, James completed his Bachelor of Arts degree at King University in 2014 and Master of Social Work degree at Rutgers University in 2017. James is a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor, trauma specialist, somatic human design coach, adjunct professor, and podcast host with 7+ years of experiences of working with individuals, groups, and organizations. In 22, he started his own private practice called Somatic Relational Counseling. James, welcome. welcome. Listen, I know I said a lot of things, even though I did not even hit on all the things that encompass James. Was anything else you want to add before we jump into our conversation?
Before that, I just have to pause for a moment and allow what you share to truly resonate with my nervous system in this moment. Right? I'm feeling really called to just let it sit in and sink in, because we don't often do that enough, right? We don't acknowledge all of the things that we've done. And so the first thing that came up for me was to pause and to breathe.
Yeah.
Just take it in.
That's so good.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Like, there's a journey that I'm on, and I'm hopeful that doing what lights me up will continue to be the thing that gets me through, right, these intergenerational cycles of trauma and experiences. I am currently in the process of trying to figure out what I want to do with my second business, which will allow me to do more spiritual guided things that I feel like I'm also called to do, and I'm working that process out. So if you follow me along this journey, everybody will see what Somatic Human Design as my second business, where that venture takes me. But it's going to be a journey for me to tap into these energetic gifts that I feel like I possess, that I've just not allowed my true gifts to resonate with me, right? So for me to be able to give and to support others in different ways, follow me along for that journey to see what comes of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that, James. And I
Yeah.
love how you even took that pause to honor the moment. I
Mhm.
feel like that's also a testament to how you practice the things that you believe in. And if anyone, stay tuned. We'll talk about that a little more in the sense of like how that even ties to the topic for today. And we live in a culture where we go, 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 especially,
Mm.
the audience here is for parents and caregivers. Oh my goodness, talk about nonstop movement, right? Constantly moving and doing and fixing and all these things. And so thank you for just modeling the importance, right? And the necessity to just pause and sometimes literally take those things in. So thank you, James.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Always.
So if anyone saw the flyer or what was put out about today, today we are talking about somatic experiences, right? And so can you first, James, just start us off by explaining what is somatic experience? Also, we know that you are a somatic therapist, so just explain all of that for us.
Yes. So, created by Dr. Peter Levine in the 70s, somatic experiencing is what we consider to be a much more body centered approach to dealing with toxic stress, dealing with chronic, PTSD or chronic PTSD, and and other stress related disorders. And so it's a non traditional version of healing in a way that traditional models of therapy, which we know are much more mind focused, right, thought focused, be able to maybe see if you've ever heard of CBT, you might hear about cognitive behavior therapy, where it talks about, okay, focus on your thoughts, look at how your thoughts are impacting your emotions and behaviors, right? And that's the traditional way in which we now believe therapy to be most effective. But Dr. Peter Levine recognized that so much, in addition to other providers in the field, so much of the things that we experience remain stored in the body, right? And we are trying to think our way through things rather than allow our bodies to continue to process the way that they're already designed to do, right? So
Mm,
for me, what somatic experiencing has become is teaching people consent with themselves on a somatic level, on a physical level. So somatic, soma is from a Greek soma, soma meaning mind, body separate from the mind. I believe for me, somatic experiencing is helping people develop consent with themselves on a physical level and allowing themselves to do whatever it is that they need to do to process events that they experience in their lives.
mm. Consent.
Yeah.
I've never heard it defined that way. That's really good. That's really good. And so I think one thing that also stood out what you just said is super important. How traditionally, right, when we hear about therapy, people envision, sitting on the couch and just talking. But you're
Yeah.
saying with somatic therapy, it's also incorporating the body,
Yeah.
right? A bodily experience because our body stores memories on things that have happened to us, things we have witnessed, etc.
Exactly. Right. So we have been, and a lot of this comes from messages that we hear, right? How we all expect ourselves to process and to go through a situation the same,
Mm,
right? And our bodies are super different, super unique, right? And so for me, the somatic experiencing is another confirmation that we're just different, right? And we're all here to deal with things in a different way, but we have restricted our bodies from being able to do what our bodies need to do in order to deal with situations, right?
when you say restrict our bodies, like what does that usually look like? Like if I'm listening to you, how do I know if I'm restricting my body from doing what it needs to do?
When we start to, and this is interesting, this is multi-layered type of answer to this, so bear with me. So this actually came up in supervision with one of my interns yesterday, and the conversation was about professionalism and like how during a virtual session or during a virtual meeting, we're expected to sit there with our arms folded, eye contact, right?
Mm,
And we have to sit like this for the duration of the meeting. It might be 2 hours, it might be 3 hours, it might be 4 hours, but we're expecting ourselves to sit there, right? But my body might be trying to turn a little bit, right? Maybe my body's trying to sit back and relax. Maybe my body is trying to, maybe I need to do something with my hands to maintain focus.
mm,
Because we've been conditioned to believe that we all need to sit there perfectly, sit still, right? This is professionalism.
Mm.
We're restricting what our bodies need to do in that very moment in order to be calm, to order to take in whatever information is being received, right? So for me, one of the things that comes to mind in my last full-time job, I had meetings Wednesdays from 8, literally it was like 3 back-to-back meetings from 8:30 till 12. And I would sit there and I would force myself to sit in the meeting, sit
Mm.
there at the camera for that 3 to 4 hours. Right. And then I would have a session right after. So then I would have to force myself to move to another location and then just be in that sort of same rigid experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so my body needs to move. Our bodies are not designed to just sit there frozen stuck. But that's the message that we consider when we talk about professionalism, right? That's the
Mm.
same message we tell children, just sit still.
Mm.
Don't move.
That is so many different thoughts are popping into my head right now as I'm listening to you, Jane. Because that's so you're right. Like our body knows what it needs. Or I'm thinking about sometimes if we're just sitting there and we're feeling irritated or even anxious, how our legs just shake. Right, for some people. Right,
Yes.
it's like we're not. I'm not saying, oh, let me shake my leg because no, it just does it because that's a way to self-soothe. And
Yes.
again, tying this to parenting, I'm thinking about how traditionally, right, we see a child blowing their breath as disrespectful.
Yes.
When that happens, James, when does a child, when do we huff and puff? When does that happen?
When we need to release this tension and energy that we feel in our body, right?
Literally, that is our body's natural way of breathing. That's a deep breath.
That's
But what
exactly
we
like,
see it as disrespectful, right? Don't huff and puff. But it's like that was a natural response. Now, can we, can we help to cultivate that, in a way that's more productive? Yes. But that is our body naturally getting what it needs. So that came to mind. I never thought about that with somatic experiencing, but it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
and it's using the natural gifts that we possess, right? These are free, y'all, like free. FREE. These are free tools
3.99.
within our system, right? Our body was designed to cope with the things that it experiences, right? And this isn't even to go deep into like experiencing trauma, but these are just the general principles of daily life. Like if someone tells you something you don't want to hear, you're gonna have an emotional reaction. Let that be, right?
Yes.
Let it be.
Even our tears, like we
Woo!
like we've made that deep and complicated, even with telling kids stop crying. But that is a need. The body needs that, right? And then when we grow up to teenage years and young adults, and adults who still aren't have not embraced the need to cry, right, James?
You
So
know what?
experience. Wow.
I
Okay.
learned that lesson. I'm learning that lesson even today,
Mm-hmm.
right? Growing up as a kid, as a my as a kid, my parents or my guardian rather. So I lost my mom very early on,
Mm-hmm.
and then I ended up being adopted by my biological uncle and aunt, and then my aunt. They ended up divorcing and then splitting, and then my aunt fought for custody of me, so she became my adoptive mom. But my upbringing, you were never allowed to cry. Like you had like even if you were getting in trouble, which is normal, right? If you're disciplining your child, you're trying to help them understand something. Right. You can still they're still going to experience sadness, right? It's okay to let that emotion out. But I believe that it was weak, right? I believe that these messages were X, Y, or Z. And so for so many years, I numbed myself from allowing myself to feel the emotions that for the last couple of months, I've just been bawling. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the stress hits me and I bawl and I'm like, what is happening? Like, why am I? But my roommate pointed out to me, she's like, if you spent so many years numbing and your body's now really like it's doing what it needs to do to course correct. And I was like, I know what you're telling me because that's right. I tell the same thing, right? But like that is an example of like how stopping a very natural response just it doesn't help you, and
Mm-hmm.
it needs to as we continue to study the effects of adversities on from children into mental. Sorry, as we continue to study the impact of adversities on children, with the ACEs study being one thing, right? we see that these lead to these chronic issues, these chronic mental health conditions, these chronic health conditions, right? Because your body is not releasing the way
Mm-hmm.
that it needs to. So it's telling you essentially, I'm going to make you go to the hospital
Mm.
to get some rest and care. And so why do we want to wait until our health is irreversible, right? Why do we want to raise our children to have to hold these things in? And then when they become adults, they're trying to deal with the aftermath of what they could have been given permission to do at a very
Mm.
early age.
Wow. Permission to do. Wow. That's so good. And you kind of already hit on it, James, but why would you say this topic is so necessary for parents?
Because we are modelers. Like as adults, we are like, I'm not a parent, but I have worked in teaching. I've worked as a teacher assistant. I've also worked with children in home, and we are modelers. Like everything that we do is being observed, right? So how am I giving my body permission to do what it needs to do is being observed by my child,
Mm.
right? Or observed by whatever children I come into contact with, right? So for me, that question came up and I was like, the parent, the adult needs to do the work within themselves so that they can model and break these intergenerational cycles,
Yes.
right? If you don't know what consent is for yourself, if you don't know how to give yourself permission,
Mm.
we miss the opportunity to teach the next generation
Mm.
and to disrupt these cycles that we've been experiencing.
Wow. That is so good. And I'm going to make sure if I don't do it, well, I'm not going to do it right now, but I do when we jump off the line for parents who are looking for a tool to help with that. I just wrote an ebook literally about what you just said, James, right? They're called Feelings and Not Fixings. And literally what you said, permission, that is the outline of the steps, giving yourself permission to be, permission to
Mm,
pause, permission to accept, permission to regulate, permission to problem solve, right? And so I'm gonna drop that in the chat for anyone who's listening who want to check out that ebook to get practical steps, right, for what James is explaining, because it's so important. Like you said, we're the models, right? And what we model, our kids will most likely mirror. And so to give ourselves permission to honor, and you actually helping me because I'm that person, because I've always been a crier all my life, and I've never felt like I had to shut it down. Like I always had the space, to be emotional.
yes,
Maybe in like 10 years, maybe I did kind of shy away, from peers
yes.
who, would say something about it. And so I'm realizing that has impacted. Even the other day, I made a live announcement. I'm like, hold on, let me suck it
I
up. And
was like, you better let that tear fall. I was in there like, come on.
I'm honoring what I'm feeling, right? Because I'm pausing, right, for the moment, but it's still something about letting it fall that I did kind of like, no,
Yeah.
because I know me, like I thought it's her ugly.
We're like, that's not ugly thing, right? But
It's
let it,
not ugly,
let it
James, but you helping me. That's okay, right? Even if I like you helping, right, and really helping me unpack like why do I? So yes, it's good at least that you're pausing to honor the moment, but like why not let it fall? Why not? What is the hesitancy there, right? So
let it
thank
fall.
you for that.
Let it
That's
fall.
good. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, James, what are some tips or one tip that you would give parents on how to be intentional about exposing their kids to somatic experience? Because we know that this is a therapy type, right? You can seek out a somatic therapist, which I highly encourage anyone. Because maybe you tried talk therapy, you was like, I hear a lot of people say that didn't work for me. It could have
Yes.
been a therapist, right? Or it could have been you need a different type of therapy, right? And so I would encourage parents to look into that if that's something you're interested in. But what about the day to day? I don't have time or the resources right now for a therapist. What can I be doing in my home with my child around this topic?
And I was deep thinking into this. I'm like, what is, because I really wanted it to be a tip that was really like accessible in the moment. And I'm glad you said that because, like, yes, the resources it's challenging to find somatic experiencing practitioners, right, that are fully like trained. And I'll talk about that afterwards. But one of the things that keeps coming to mind is co-regulation,
Mm.
right? And the reason, and so for those of us who maybe or may not be familiar with it, we're talking about using your own nervous system to help soothe and teach the child how to regulate their nervous system. right? And the biggest thing that we know can help with that is touch, skin to skin contact and touch, right? When we're experiencing a lot, we may not have the language to communicate what we're going through. I know as a child, probably definitely don't have the language to be able to say, like, I'm having an emotional experience in my body,
Mm.
and what I need right now is for someone to just give me a hug, to put
Literally,
their arms
James. Yes.
and just say, I'm with you. Not to tell me what I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not to tell me what to do with it, but to just be in my orbit
In
with
that
a
moment.
simple hand
Yes.
can be so liberating for a child's nervous system.
Please do not lose where you're going, but I have to just share a story right here. Literally this morning, James, we were trying to get out the house, and my daughter and son, they wanted to play Spider-Man. So he has a Spider-Man costume. They were coming upstairs to get the Spider-Man costume. I'm like, yeah, it's time to go. We don't have time to play Spider-Man
Yeah.
right now. She had a complete meltdown. Complete.
Oh,
She was like, no, I just made it up here to get his Spider-Man. I want to play Spider-Man. And I felt myself like, girl, like, no. I felt it rising, but I literally just walked over to her and just hugged her.
yes.
Literally just
Ooh,
walked over and hugged her. First, she had her arms down at first. She didn't want to put her arm around because she was upset, right? But she
yes.
was leaning into it. It wasn't like, so then next thing I know, she put her arm up around my shoulder and she was calming herself down. Literally, right? And then we
Oh,
were able to have a conversation. And so what you just said, like it's so true. Sometimes their touch is all if we don't check ourselves, we don't want to be taken like because we irritated and bothered. But to have that knowledge, right, of just the touch is the first step of co-regulation. It's powerful, James. Thank you for
so
naming it.
absolutely. And what I'm feeling called to also talk about in that very moment is sometimes we're picking up the emotional energy of our children,
Mm-hmm.
right? Our nervous system is a little bit, hopefully, if you've done some work on stuff, right, like also a little bit of that in there, but
Right.
our nervous system is picking up the energy of what the child is needing.
Mm.
Sometimes when we're frustrated, we're actually picking up on our child's frustration
And vice versa.
and vice versa, right? And when we say, well, in this moment, I might need someone to give me a hug, we're actually probably absorbing what our child is communicating us on an energetic level of what they need,
Mm.
right? So it's like, I'm feeling this urge to just give you a hug right now rather than allow my own anger, right? My own frustration or irritability to take over. A hug is going to help me. You have no idea how powerful that hug is for the child,
Mm.
right? And so that's where definitely going back to step two of like what's necessary for the parent, right? You also have to be able to understand your nervous system,
Yeah.
understand what your body needs, right? And then again back to the hug, we need to allow our children to have that emotional fluctuation. That's why it's saying no to someone, right? Like saying no to our child and letting them get that frustration of like, I don't want, right? Like that's healthy for the system. Actually, we need to go in and out of this sort of what we consider hypo arousal states, right?
James, say that again. Say that again, James.
We need to go into these fluctuations.
Mm.
We need to experience a little irritability. So when we tell our child no, and we're like, don't tell your child no, because you don't want them to get mad. No, you want them to experience that no, because you're getting them in and out of their nervous system. You're getting it activated, but you're also teaching them how when you say no, and I tell you that it's time to go, that we're gonna be fine, right? I can give you a hug and help you calm down. So it's such an important tip that just kept coming up of like, just give a hug, give a touch.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. And like you said, so practical, right? Something we all have access to and something we can do. I love that, James. That's so good. So good. Let me make sure I didn't have because I was at some point jotting down too, catching things to see if I want to say anything else. We got some amens. You got an amen corner, right? Right. Also saw energetic level because it's real. It's real. If we just pay attention to what our bodies are saying, our bodies are always communicating. And if
Always.
we're just in tune enough to just pause, like you did at the beginning, I love that model that you are, just to pause and just literally give ourselves what we need. And as a parent, give our kids what they need, right? So that's so good, James. Is there any other thoughts or last words you want to share?
I just, well, first off, just thank you for inviting me in for this conversation. It's these conversations that, like, when I'm having these discussions with individuals, like, it's igniting for my nervous system. It's
Mhm.
exciting for me, and so I just want to first just say thank you so much. What the other thing, that the thought that's coming to mind is, like, a lot of patience. The word patience is popping up in my mind because it's very hard for the minority community, like Black individuals, to even go through the concept of traditional therapy, right? And so this is something that is even, I don't want to say newer, but this is something that could be even more challenging to wrap your head around, right? This idea of getting support in a way that isn't traditional, right? So we're really fighting like two battles, right? Like the actual need for help, right, and then the let's do this in a very different, really energetic way.
Mhm.
uh so that's the things that are coming to my mind right now, is just patience with yourself, and like checking in with what you need,
Yes,
right, tuning into what you need for the sake of your child.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we kind of hit on it earlier, but just want to reiterate, because even with your own personal story of, PTSD, and different challenges and battles, like for anyone who does have a history of a more traumatic past and traumatic experience, or those ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, this is definitely something worth looking into. Even like we said, if it's not the option to pursue a therapist right now, there are even somatic exercises that can
Yeah.
be done in the comfort of your home. I don't know, outside of YouTube, if you have a particular resource that people can go to find some of those, but there are literally somatic exercises you can do right in the comfort of your own home to help release some of the different tension, and things the body is holding in. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
So I would like, if we can, to even just engage in an exercise right now. So if
Yeah.
that's something that feels settling for your nervous system, and notice how it has to be an invitation, and it also has to be giving permission,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whatever exercises, and I'm a big believer in body scanning, right? I'm a big believer in body scanning, and so you can do that, like, off the rip. You can do that through other videos and things like that. But even in this moment, I invite you to just focus your eyes on a location that feels comfortable for you. And as you do so, bring your attention and your awareness to your breath. Notice where the air is coming in. Notice where it is releasing. Is the breath coming deeply and into the body and into the abdomen? Or is the air stuck and pausing? And in that moment, I invite you to continue to shift a little bit, if that feels comfortable for you. Maybe twisting a little bit to the left or the right. Lifting shoulders up and back in a circular motion. Whatever it is your body is asking for right now, you want to honor it by giving it permission to do so. And breathing in and blow out as if blowing through straw. You can share a little bit about what your body is needing in this moment. And as I was observing you, I began to rock with you.
I did. When you said what our body needs, like I am a rocker. I soothe often through rocking. So yes, even to be able to pause and say, okay, what does my body need right now? Like that stretching my shoulders. Like it sounds so simple, James.
It's
It's something we don't pay attention to what our body needs.
so for a moment, and continuing to rock, checking in with your posture.
Hmm.
The first thing that came to mind for me was to sit back a little bit,
Hmm.
breathe fully, and exhale. I said, when I'm breathing correctly, I'm not thinking.
Hmm. When I'm breathing correctly, I am not thinking.
I'm just allowing my body to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in that moment and I'm present.
Hmm. It's a good way of putting it.
So I would encourage anyone, even if it's 4 times a day, to breathe with intention. Full belly breath and release. It's our free tool. It's our free regulation tool. It's the gift that God gave us to be able to literally get through whatever it is that we're going through. Simply breathe
Hmm.
on purpose.
That's so good. And I'm gonna say this as well. I was gonna tell you after the call, but I'm gonna let everybody know. This is helping me in a sense. I am a fast talker. And so I'm always trying to be intentional about slowing down when speaking, and like continuing to do this practice more is a tool for that as well, to not feel the need to rush, right? Or to get to the end. So yes, this is good. And I will say this for anyone who is listening: if you are not in the space to, if you desire to be in that moment, but your space is not conducive to that, you can come back to this later. Come back, fast forward to the beginning of, that moment. And I will encourage you to give it a try, to practice it. Because truly, and even when you talk about presence, I think about something I'm always encouraging the parents I work with to remember, that the goal is not to be a present. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
The goal is not to be a perfect parent. It's to be a present one. That's the goal. The goal is to not be perfect. It's to be present. And present starts with us being present where we are emotionally, right? With us being present in our bodies. Because when we do that, we give our kids the gift of presence. So it's so connected.
It is
It's such a beautiful
literally,
thing.
it's so connected. Like it when I have these conversations and I end up like, it's like my mind is blown. It's like I'm shocked by the thing that I've begun to understand is so, like, it's so, but of course it's so connected, right?
Mhm.
But it's like still like this mind shocking of like, what? Like the breath is really that powerful. It's like the breath is really that powerful,
Mhm.
right? You are disrupting so much signals that are happening in your brain when you simply breathe, when you
Absolutely.
pause, when you are present,
Absolutely.
right? Like,
So before we get ready to close out, James, remind those who are listening, what is your challenge for them for this week? If they choose to accept, what are you challenging them to do
ooh,
this week?
your challenge, should you choose to accept. Oh, I challenge you to pause each morning before you start your day. I think alarm clock goes off. I think we jump up and we dart, right? And we are just starting our day already kicking our nervous system way higher than it needs to be, right? I challenge you to pause in the morning right before you start your day. And if you're extra bold, pause with gratitude.
Mm, come on, extra bold.
I have a crystal on my window that hangs, and when the light hits, the assignment for me was when the light hits and it sort of ricochets off to see
Hmm.
like the rainbow in it, to practice gratitude, right? And
Mm,
so that's came to my mind because I can see it. I can see it ricocheting off my wall. And I'm like, gratitude. So that bonus homework came.
come on, bonus. Y'all
Right,
better take the bonus.
gratitude.
I love it. Gratitude. So pausing in the morning, not jumping on high speed first thing in the morning, pausing. And if you take that bonus, that extra credit, throw a little gratitude in there as well. James, thank you so much for coming through. Please tell the people how they can follow you and keep up with you.
So you can follow me right now on Instagram at underscore James D Williams. So that's underscore JAMESDWILLIAMS. If you follow me there, you'll be able to follow me on all other platforms. My hope is to work towards get my podcast back up. I just want to, I'm trying to, there's a lot that I'm figuring out right now in terms of where I want to take my ventures. But following me there on Instagram, you will be able to keep up with whatever it is that comes up next for me.
Yes, I love it. James, thank you so much for being here today. Those who are listening, those who are catching the replay, I hope you are taking these nuggets with you and let us know in the chat. What are you taking away with you that you want to apply to your daily practice as a person or as a parent? All right. So, James, thank you so much. And until next time, you guys keep growing in gentleness.